Setting up your home bar can be quite an intimidating process. From buying equipment to buying bottles and glassware, it's hard to know where to start. But today we're going to be going through our bar equipment essentials. Let me guide you through what I consider to be my essentials. There is a massive spectrum of what different types of equipment you can buy over the lifetime of your home bar to improve it. Starting with the basics is always really important. You don't have to rush this process, you just get what you need as you go. There's no need to spend hundreds and thousands of pounds on stuff that you don't need right away. So the first thing for me, which I think is so essential, is your tins. Now for me, I always opt for a Boston tin. Not one which has one part glass, one part metal, but they're both metal. There are many different types of shakers on the market. You've got Boston tins and cobblers, but depending on how much money you're spending, sometimes a cobbler can get you in a lot of trouble. Sometimes when you buy them cheap, when you shake it up and it gets really cold, it's impossible to take off. Whereas I feel like Boston tins are a very fail-safe way to make your cocktails. So we're going to do this as if we're making a cocktail. So now we've got our tins. What are we going to use to measure out our ingredients? Well, we're obviously going to use a jigger. Jiggers come in all different sizes and shapes. I quite like the Japanese style jiggers, almost like triangular, but I've also got a bell jigger that I really love. Or you can even get the straight up and down ones as well. It's whatever you prefer and also what measurements you use. I've got jiggers which you can measure 1 ounce and 2 ounces. I've got 25 mils, 50 mils, and then they've also got rings on the inside which suggest whether 15, 20, and on and on and on. It just depends how precise you want to be. And when you're making cocktails, you want to be as precise as possible, at least in my thinking. This is also the beauty of when you're setting up your bar, is that it is completely tailored to your style. If you like straight up and down, you like straight up and down. If you like the Japanese style, you like the Japanese style. Put your own flair on it. That's where the fun is, you know. Now we've got our tins, we've got our jigger, we've shaken our cocktail up. Now how do we strain it? Well, there are multiple different types of strainers. You have Hawthorne strainers, you'll have julep strainers, and you'll also have tea strainers. All have different uses. When you buy a cocktail set, you'll often be provided with the Hawthorne and the tea strainer. However, for me, when you're specifically looking at Hawthorns and juleps, I actually like to go right smack bang in the middle and get a, what I call, I don't know if it's the actual name, what I call is a prongless Hawthorne strainer. It kind of has a structure of a julep strainer, but has the coil which you'd find on a Hawthorne. You can use it exactly like you use a Hawthorne, you can use it exactly like you would use a julep, and I think it also just looks really clean. But then again, that's also, again, my aesthetic. Typically when you're using a Hawthorne strainer, I'd be using that for when I've shaken a cocktail. If I was going to be stirring a cocktail, I would often strain it with a julep strainer, whereas I feel like prongless Hawthorne can actually just do both. The reason that I haven't put a mixing glass in this video is because anything you need to do in a mixing glass, you can do in a tin. It's an expense you don't really need. If anything, I prefer using a tin to stir with. I feel like there's more feel with it. The tin gets super cold and you just know when it's ready. Then we have what I'm going to call the miscellaneous category. These are items that I think are very important, but they don't really fit into their own category. First up, we've got the tried and trusted Mexican elbow, or just a juicer for juicing your citrus. This thing is so unbelievably important. If you're not juicing your own citrus, you're not doing it right. The little bottles of citrus juice you can buy from the shops, full of additives and acids which try to preserve the juice, but in turn just make them taste really artificial and are not good. Not good for your cocktails, not good for food, not good for anything. Next up, for when you're stirring your cocktails, you're obviously going to want a spoon, specifically a long spoon like this. You don't want to stir with a small teaspoon or something. You want to have one of these so that you can nicely swirl the drink around, nice and efficiently. Next up is probably my least used tool at home on my home bar, is a muddler. I very rarely ever find myself using one, but if you are making anything which has herbs and you want to give it a quick bash to release some essential oils, then this is a go-to. However, you can, in theory, use something else, just a blunt object, to get the same effect. And then last but not least, if you love your wine, obviously get yourself a waiter's friend or a wine knife, whatever you want to call it. Not only is it for wine as well though, you've also got the little hook here which can open up little soda bottles or any capped bottles that you have. Super easy to open. And then the last category, but not least, is things I think you already have at home but are still worth mentioning. You'll see the juicer is in there again. That's because a lot of people probably already have a juicer at home, but some people might not. First up is obviously a knife. Now, you don't want to be using like a normal like cutlery knife. You want to get some kind of actual nice sharp blade. You can use this for cleaning up garnishes, you can use it for, and also obviously cutting the fruit that you're going to juice. Obviously, if you don't have a knife in your home already, I'm probably a little bit concerned. And then last but not least, for all of your whiskey sours or old fashions, you're gonna need to peel your fruit. So got a nice little peeler here, an easy peeler. You can also use a knife, but I prefer using the peeler. And again, it's something that you probably already have at home. So that's it. It's as simple as that. So a few gadgets here and there, which realistically if you buy a cocktail set, most of them are going to come included. There's obviously a lot more advanced gadgets which you can buy, which I've got in the house as well. There'll be YouTubers who have got crazy things compared to me. I've got very, very basic things. But that's the fun of it. Like I said, it's a journey. You start one place and you build it up over time, and you can make it as far as you want. Make it as far as you want or as grand as you want. I'm probably going to do another video after this about my go-to bottles at home, which I think could be really helpful for people trying to start their actual bar. You know, the equipment can only get you so far if you don't have any actual booze. So yeah, thank you again for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this and found it informative, and I look forward to seeing you next time for my next video. See you next time.